Hey. I don't normally just go live on YouTube, but I decided I would today just because, I don't know, I just kind of feel called to. Feel like I've got quite a lot to say. Lots to say and nothing to say all at the same time, and I can't get it out of my head. So I kind of thought maybe if I spoke to people or imaginary people, it might help me clarify what I actually properly need to say. So it's the end of term in the UK at the minute. It's about to be the summer holidays. Most schools have got sort of a week left, couple of days left. Some schools are broken up already. And I think this time of year is always really interesting for kids with dyslexia and parents of kids with dyslexia specifically, because often they are really burnt out. I can remember myself. I mean, I didn't have my diagnosis of dyslexia as a kid. I didn't get my diagnosis until I was an adult, but I can remember just feeling totally burnt out, totally exhausted. I just loved the freedom of the summer holidays. And I can remember, my children are a bit older now, but I can remember particularly when they were at primary school, those early years of secondary school, there was a real sense of, I just love the summer holidays because I love the routine. But what I love most as a parent is seeing the freedom and just seeing my children just being themselves. And I think summer holidays often make me realize that, not just summer holidays, I guess kind of all holidays kind of make me realize that during term time, my children are really not themselves. Like, it makes me realize how much school takes out of them. I mean, I've talked a lot on lives and in posts about how, as a parent, I'm an ex-teacher and an ex-SENCO. And for me, homeschooling was never something I had particularly considered or wanted to do. But I've been very aware that in order to support my dyslexic children through the system, it's been a process, and I do feel like it has damaged their confidence and self-esteem. Like, I don't see how it can't not. Like, when you're in an exam-based system and you're going to school every day and you're being measured against your peers, using language, reading, spelling, writing, it's got to take its toll on you. And as a parent, I've always worked really hard to counteract that at home. And I think partly because I knew my own experience growing up and I wanted my kids' experience to be different, even though I didn't know I was dyslexic. And I've talked a lot on social media this week about how when my children have experienced failure or have had negative symptoms, I've literally gone out of my way to provide positive opportunities and experiences for them to counteract that negative experience. So I can't remember the exact figure, but I can remember when I was doing some training once, when I trained to become a nurture teacher practitioner, they said that you need at least 3 positive experiences to outweigh 1 negative experience. So if children are struggling all day at school, and even if they're not struggling outwardly, like quite often dyslexics manage to keep up. And actually the impact isn't necessarily on their attainment. The impact is almost kind of internal. It's on their confidence, their self-esteem. They use words like, I'm stupid, I'm not clever. I've just interviewed Dr. Helen Ross this morning, and she's got a doctorate, but like she said, you still sometimes have that narrative in your head as a dyslexic person, and that really does kind of stem back to our school experiences. So the summer holidays, which is how this started, I always really loved the summer holidays when my kids were little, simply because it enabled them to be free, and I got to see who they really were. And every year I would use the summer holidays to 100% maximize boosting their confidence and self-esteem. So I talk a lot about how with dyslexia, it's not even really as a parent about managing literacy skill. It's about keeping their self-esteem bucket full and filling it with confidence. So I would do all sorts of things with my kids in the summer holidays to make sure that when they went back to school, that self-esteem bucket was literally overflowing. That that was kind of what I saw as my job as a parent. And we did all sorts of things. I remember the transition from primary to secondary school with one of my children. I actually had a conversation with them and asked them what they wanted to achieve in order to feel confident and head to secondary school. So he actually wanted to learn how to skateboard. So we found a skateboarding club, and actually some friends of his skateboarded, and they kind of gave him some tips. But he wanted to learn how to skateboard. And the other thing he wanted to do was he wanted to paddleboard. We live really close to the sea, and he wanted to paddleboard. There's a fort that you can walk to, but he wanted to paddleboard to that fort. They were the two things that he wanted to do that would kind of set him apart from the other kids. At the time, his confidence, his self-esteem was super low. He'd had a really tricky time at primary school, didn't have a lot of friends. Academically, he'd passed his SATs, but it had massively taken a toll on him. So those were the things that we worked on throughout the summer holidays. You know, no reading, no spelling, no tuition. It was about actually, if I could fill his self-esteem bucket up and I could keep him engaged and I could give him a purpose, then school would be able to do the rest. So yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about this morning. I have actually also, in a bit of a hyperfocus yesterday, written a guide for parents on how to reboot your, thanks for the share over on TikTok, by the way. And I've got a viewer on YouTube, which is amazing. I think this is one of the first times I've had a viewer on YouTube, so amazing. For me, it's really important that, and I forgot what I was going to say now. I've totally lost my train of thought because I got excited because I had one person watching me and somebody share me on TikTok. How ADHD is that? What was I saying? Yeah, I think for me as a parent, the most important thing I can do for my children is keep their confidence and their self-esteem high. So for me, I never ever taught them. So even though I've got the specialist skills to be able to teach them, I never taught them. And actually, they didn't really have an awful lot of tuition. And it definitely, if they did, it was for a short period of time to almost give them a boost. But what we want to be doing is in holidays, we really want to be giving them as many positive experiences as we can so that they feel uber confident, so that when they go to school in September, school can do what they need to do in order to move them forward. It's about keeping them motivated and engaged and giving them purpose. So I'm really excited that you can now find my ebook. It's called Broken to Brilliant. And you'll find it in my Stand store. Really, really excited about that one. I wrote it in a bit of an ADHD hyperfocus this week. And on that, let's talk ADHD and hyperfocus. So I've just had, and if you're on my YouTube or you follow me on YouTube, you'll know that I've just recorded another episode of Rees Frame this morning with two of the speakers that are speaking at the Isle of Wight conference. And Fintan O'Regan is coming to speak ADHD and ADHD strategies. And I think what is super interesting was he mentioned hyperfocus. Now, for me, hyperfocus is actually the thing that impacts me most as an ADHD person. And it impacted me most, probably negatively, when I worked in a workplace. But now I work for myself, I can totally utilize and use my hyperfocus to an advantage. But actually, if hyperfocus, so too much attention, if you're really involved, really engrossed in what you're doing, it's the transitioning from that to something that you don't want to do that is difficult. And that's what kids find difficult at school, transitioning from if they're really enjoying something or they haven't finished something, actually leaving it halfway through as an ADHD person is really, really very stressful. The other thing that comes with hyperfocus is time blindness and the inability to do anything else. So for example, I've been writing this ebook this week, and actually yesterday afternoon, I ended up running really late and leaving the house in a right mess because I was really focused on what I was doing. You know, there are other times when potentially you could call me lazy and I've chosen not to do something. But yesterday, it wasn't that I didn't choose to tidy up. It was that actually I was really engrossed in doing something and I wanted to finish it and get it out there. And actually, that is a really helpful resource for parents. And it was a really proactive and kind of useful, helpful on-task thing that I was doing. So sometimes hyperfocus can be really, really, really super duper helpful. So yeah, that were just my two thoughts really on dyslexia and ADHD. Don't know if anybody has got any questions. Please do feel free to ask them. If you have kind of live streaming TikTok and YouTube simultaneously. If you have got any questions, please do feel free to ask. But yeah, I am super excited about the ebook. Please do go and check it out. I'm in secondary school and I did a dyslexia screening, but they didn't get back to me. Could I still be? So I would say if you're having screenings done in school and then you need to go and ask them for the results of that. Either way. Sometimes, unfortunately, in schools, they're busy places and they don't get back to people. That doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't got it. It just means that they haven't got back to you with the results. So I would say if you've had a screen carried out and they haven't got back to you, it's definitely worth finding somebody to have a conversation. It must be super humid today because my hair is like gone like bizarrely curly. Bizarrely curly. And I also went for a run this morning and I think that didn't help. Anyway, right, I have to go collect a child in a minute and go and post a Vinted parcel because I'm having a competition at the moment, inspired actually by the confidence blueprint that I've written and one of the quests on there. I am in a quest challenge with one of my children at the moment to see who can sell the most on Vinted. We're trying to get rid of stuff before she heads off for uni, but also do a bit of decluttering because I've just kept on to loads of stuff that I didn't need. And actually, as an ADHD person, that can be really kind of debilitating, actually having like clutter. I try really hard to kind of declutter stuff and not have very much stuff and regularly sort of throw stuff away so that it doesn't build up, because then it's less stuff to tidy, but also less stuff to keep tidy and less places to lose stuff. But yeah, hope that was helpful. I may well come back for a live stream another day with another thought, but yeah, that's my thought for the day.